Welcome back, Lang Golf Academy members, and this light is bright, and we're here today to talk about Amy Yang, how she just came off of her 5th victory, and why I believe her swing is something that you should try to emulate more, because this is about as standard of a golf swing as you can get. And don't forget, for our 1,000,000th subscriber giveaway, we're giving away this cool Donald Trump rubber ducky.
Nobody.
But the good news is I won't have to give that away for about 20 more years. And if you do like this type of content, hit that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and helps us donate funding to the Hillerhood Foundation in Cape Flat, South Africa for low-income children to get them into golf. And your like, your comments, and your share will help this mysterious YouTube algorithm that I have no idea what it's about. But enough of that spicy horseradish. Let's get to the video. Alright, so we have Amy Yang on the screen. Now, before we get to analyzing her golf swing, I wanted to show you this comparison. If you watched the video I made a couple of videos ago about field versus real, here's another example. The field swing's on the left side, the real swing's on the right side, and this was taken the same day, same moment, so this is really cool for you guys to watch. So I want you to look at the two different positions already. We can see on the left side we have a spine angle that's working away from the target, and on the right side we have a spine angle that's starting to lean into the target. And so although she's trying to feel this, her reel's on the right side, and her target is somewhere in the middle. Now, it's very important how she unwinds on the left side versus the right side. Look at her feel. Her feel is trying to get her whole body to turn while she's getting that right shoulder to tilt under. And we can see a little bit of this at this frame here. I'm going to stop this and put it in our very favorite Barney Purple. We can see that right shoulder is working more under, where the right shoulder is leveling out at the same point. And all that is going to do is going to shift her hand position slightly ahead to center. If we extend the right shoulder down to her hands versus the right shoulder down to her hands, we can see by getting that right shoulder to tilt a little bit more than what she is actually doing, she's helping her hand speed increase and stay with her center of her chest. But from here, look at the right side of the screen. Obviously there's a ball in the way, so that's where her hands have to release. When the one on the left side, we can see her hands and her chest are still connected to that initial spine angle that she was trying to feel. The one on the right side, it's a little bit teeter-totter, but she still manages to get her hands out in front of her chest, but it doesn't quite match up the spine angle she is trying to feel. Now, if we continue past the impact, we can see the forced delay on the left side versus the actual release. Now, we'll talk about her release in our swing analysis coming up soon. But if you notice that spine angle, look at the spine angle on the right side versus the spine angle on the left side. She is trying to stay more level. And we can see this in her follow-through. She is promoting a taller finish. So here's that taller finish. And we're going to do the nice correct one in green. And we're going to go to comparison to the one on the right where it's slightly leaning forward. So again, when you watch a professional do these slow motion practice swings and you're in awe how beautiful they look, don't forget they're doing a field drill and their swing is not as beautiful as their practice swing. It is somewhere in the middle of where they are versus where they want to be. But if you're interested in more of this, I'll link the video somewhere right now on the screen or even in the description down below. And I did a whole video about field versus real, but enough of that. Let's get down to analyzing her swing. All right, so we have her iron on the left side, driver on the right side. This is down the line. The view on the right side is a little bit crooked. We needed Mr. Cameraman to move over about 4 or 5 steps to the left, but this will work. And what I want you to look at is the similarities and also the differences of setting up with an iron versus a driver. Now, with a driver, it is taller, it is longer. We should stand a little bit taller. We should also move our weighting closer towards our toes and not sit back on our heels, but not to the point where you're falling over on your tippy toes. So let's draw this in our favorite Barney Purple. Let's go from the back of the heels straight up to the sky on both of these, and we can start to see how much more of her body is over that left side of Barney line versus the one on the right side. There's little over that left side. That means that most of her weight is sitting from her arches of the feet forward, where most of the weight on the left side is centered and slightly on her heels. And then the second thing we look at, and we're going to use Barney Purple again, we're going to draw from her eyesight straight down to the ground. And forgive me if these aren't exactly straight. I left my reading glasses in the car. And now we can see some differences here. You see how her hands on the left side is in the middle of her eyesight and her legs versus the one on the right side. Her hands are almost touching her eyesight, and that makes sense because if you're standing up taller and because the club is longer, you need to raise your hand slightly higher to adjust for that. But the biggest thing is take a look at that left lead arm. We don't see that left lead arm lifting up. It is still fairly straight down to the ground. So if we take a look at her left lead arm here and her left lead arm here, There is hardly any upward motion for her setup. So when you are setting up at home with your driver and your iron, know the difference between the two. But keep in mind, everybody is different because we all have different arm length ratios. We have shorter arms, longer legs, shorter torso, longer lower body. So it all makes a big difference. There's no universal way to set up, but set up so you are in balance and ready to use your plane work efficiently. So let's take this swing straight back to the midway point. And what we'll notice on both of these swings is look at the hands. The hands go riding up that lower plane line. The club head is staying below that lower plane line. And this is important because it actually arrives in the same place that it takes off. The secondary little yellow line, that's the ideal point of where her arms should go up to. Now there's a disclaimer for using these lines. I don't live and die by these lines, but at least shows me cause and effect and how a person of her caliber can make a swing work that isn't quite textbook. And every golfer on tour is not textbook. They all have their unique way of striking the golf ball. Same with you and I. So what we'll do is we'll use our favorite Barney Purple again and just put a little line where that club head is on both of these. And you have to forgive me, this is a little blurry, but we're going to try and get both club heads in the same position. Now we take that club as we go back even further. We can see she gets to that secondary plane line pretty well on both left and right side. Now on the left side, to me, this is about as perfect as you can get. There is a nice wide turn. Her hands are still in front of her chest, and we can tell that by doing our Barney Purple line from the grip straight down to the ground, and we can see that they're not crossing back. It's no man's land over here. They're still out in front of her body. Now this is that one move that she has. It's a little bit long, but this is what starts her downswing. So if we keep going back, we can see that those hands rise a little bit higher, but what's happening as well is her upper body is starting to tip towards the target. Now if you remember her field versus real swing that I showed you before this video, you can see that she's still trying to work on that angle of her spine, and I believe this is what she's trying to focus on. But here in a real life situation, momentum takes those hands back a little bit and it starts to rock her swing. Now this rocking motion initiates her downswing, and we can see a slight left leg starting to absorb that power. But what you see about her distribution of her weighting of her feet, they're nice and even. They're not toe heavy, they're not heel heavy. You see the arches of the feet are staying grounded. So she is retaining her hip turn while turning around that retainment. That's going to build up a lot of energy that's going to unwind from the lower body. But what you'll notice is even at the top of the swing, let's extend her shaft plane out towards where that is pointing. There is one, and then there is two. Now keep in mind the one on the right side is at a slightly different angle, so it will look very much cross the line. But if we look at her foot line, if you take a look at the one on the left versus the one on the right is actually closer to her foot line than the one on the left. But this is important because the one on the left is an iron swing, so she's trying to get that club shaft in a steeper position at the top, so there's less work to get that club in the plane. Could you imagine if her iron was pointing this way? She'd have to now time all this angle in the same short amount of time that she has currently to strike down the golf ball. You can get away with it a little bit more on the right side because the golf ball's on a tee and we're not trying to strike down. We're trying to strike up. So let's do our patented triangle check, and let's take a look at where her triangle is and look at what her motion of her hands need to do to get that club into the slot. Now remember, it is ideal, and you'll see this across these top elite athletes, is they get their hands down into the slot before they turn. Many of us from this position start turning before we get our hands or arms into the slot, and this is what causes chaos in the golf swing. And it could be as simple as sequence checking, or it could be as complex as your body mechanics are not able to do it because you have range of motion issues. So you have to go see a PGA or LPGA golf pro to help you out. But let's take a look. We're going to draw her hand path where it should start to fall down based on that top position. And we're going to look and see if that does occur. Let's go to the left side of the screen first. Look at those hands going right down. That's perfect. Right side of the screen, we can see they're going down that same line. So she's doing a fantastic job. She hasn't really turned at this point. Her upper body is not really turning. Her lower body is dipping and starting to turn. So there goes that kinetic change. So typically you start unwinding from the lower body and work your way up. And what we can see now is look at the head height. So the head height also dips down probably about half a head. So that half a head dip is going to help her because she was about half a head too high above her upper plane line. So that half a head dip will drop it in the slot. And as well, she's pulling that triangle close to her body, so that right elbow is starting to pull into her body, and that'll allow her club to fall straight into the plane on both of these. So let's redraw that plane line now, and let's do it in our favorite Barney Purple, and we can kind of see a shaft fluttering there, and here there's a shaft fluttering in the breeze over there. And you'll notice that the one on the right is much flatter or shallow, as today's coaches talk about. The one on the left is definitely steeper because we are trying to strike down in it, and that is all set up, and that is also one of the reasons why she has her setup a little bit different. And as we continue, now we look at the upper body. The upper body is going to start to turn down because she is good to go. Once that club is in that slot, it is just turn and push. So now her legs are going to start to push up. You can see that little drive there, especially with the driver and that club shaft. Let's reconnect where that club shaft falls through. So the left side, you can see that fluttering line falling right through that little end zone that she created on her way back. Right side of the screen, it's a little bit harder to tell, so let's just go back and forth, and we can kind of see the shadow of her club head falling right through, again, that little impact zone that she set up on her way back. So she is just truly swinging in a nice circle around her setup. Now, the one on the right to this position, we can start to see a little bit of difference. We can look at that weighting. Her right foot is not as grounded. Now, remember, she has a little bit more rotation too, because with the club on a tee, she doesn't have to worry about keeping the lower body as grounded as the one on the left side, where she has to maintain her tilting to strike down to make sure she still strikes down. The one on the right side, you can get a little bit more away with it because now you have to turn more, and that's why her club head is significantly lower on the right side, because as she strikes the golf ball, she is swinging up. Look at the lower body action. There's a little bit more turn. There's a little bit more oomph from the lower body. We see this right heel kicking up higher than the one on the left side. So although she is still driving her weight distribution, the one on the right side is clearly more visible. And this release, now if you didn't see my video last time, I just put one up about grip. You can see this release here. Now if we go back to impact, we can tell this is a fairly neutral grip, and that's going to allow her to have that release, unlike our strong grip friends out there that have to delay the release. Look at the shoulder work. So from this point on past impact, the right shoulder can still turn around that spine. So if we take a look at our Barney Purple again, we can see the shoulder is staying level to her initial spine angle. Once we come on through, look at the left side. Where do those hands come out? Right on that upper plane line. The one on the right side, it's coming up a little higher. So we have to think about this. Why is it coming up higher? Well, that's because she was able to get a little bit more shallow and swing more up past impact. So the momentum of her hands are going to take them up higher, so they will finish higher. Let's take this back a couple of frames here, because here's a key image I want you to look at. Right past impact, we can see that this club head relative to the hands have not flicked through. So in other words, that right hand has not been overactive and rolled over. It is just released. Sometimes in some amateurs that I teach, I see that club head doing this because they are flicking through. They are trying to activate their hands too much, and that could be a sign that their body's out of position or their plane work is insufficient and their hands have to activate to try and save that golf shot. We do see some slight posture loss. We start to stand up slightly, so right at impact we can see our new spine angle, but we have to think about why she's doing that. Once she gets to about here, if you start standing up, that's going to help your hands get a little bit higher and your club head work lower, which again is that shallow effect that a lot of these good players do, and that helps them increase their launch angle and strike the ball up. Okay, lastly, I want to show you this face on view again, because this just shows you the release of a neutral grip and also the setup of everything neutral. And this is the piece I want you guys and girls watching this to try and emulate more of. No more forward pressing. Just do yourself a favor and start to set up more neutral. So if we see that spine angle, it's going to run right through her hands. The club shaft is going to run right at that same angle, and all this is going to do is connect that golf ball straight to the center of your chest that you are swinging around, so you don't have to manipulate or retime any positions where your hands could possibly get ahead at the start. Now if we take a look at this grip, we can see that both V's, there's one V and the other V is running right up to it. Let's zoom out so we can see what this is all about. And where are those V's pointing to? Again, you guessed it, is pointing right with Barney Purple at the center. So everything is centered, centered, centered. So if there's anything you can take from this video, please start setting up more centered, but don't just do it and expect to hit it like a tour pro. Your swing has to also account for a setup position that is neutral. So you cannot do that on your own. You have to work with a golf coach. So if you do not, I highly recommend going out to work with a golf coach who can help address grip changes and swing changes in unison, and you will hit a little bit better. Hope that helps you, everybody. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. It really helps us grow. Hope you have a great day, everybody. Fairways and greens.